Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to try and decode what you might call the operating system of our society. We're going to look at the invisible architecture of power, the constant battle for our beliefs, and maybe most importantly, where you fit into all of it. So let's dive in.
You ever just get that feeling that you're playing a game, but nobody ever told you the rules? That feeling of confusion? Well, it's not an accident. It's actually a symptom of these incredibly complex systems that are humming along just beneath the surface. And in this explainer, we're going to start pulling back the curtain on that mystery.
All right, so first up, the structure itself. Who is actually in charge here? The answer you'll find is way more complex and honestly, way more interesting than just pointing a finger at politicians or billionaires. It all starts with an idea that might feel a little backward at first.
And that leads us to this really fascinating concept from the thinker Noam Chomsky: institutional stupidity. Now, the idea isn't that powerful people are literally stupid. No, the problem is that they're often making perfectly rational decisions inside of systems that are themselves fundamentally irrational or even self-destructive. And this is a perfect example. A CEO, as a person, can fully understand the existential threat of climate change, but their institutional role, their job, demands that they prioritize shareholder value. And within that system, that means fighting regulations that could hurt profits. So the individual action makes sense, but the collective outcome, it's a disaster.
Okay, so if the system itself produces these crazy outcomes, who's maintaining the system? Well, sociologist G. William Domhoff points to some pretty compelling evidence of what he calls a cohesive upper class. This isn't just a group of rich people. It's a deeply interconnected network that owns a huge chunk of the economy and is bound together by shared experiences and institutions.
And here's exactly how that social glue is made and maintained. You can think of it like a pipeline. It starts with elite boarding schools that create a shared culture. Then you have these exclusive social clubs, like the infamous Bohemian Grove, that provide these relaxed, informal settings for bonding and making deals. And finally, family offices make sure that wealth and control stay locked in, passed down through generations. You see, this isn't some grand conspiracy. It's a subculture.
So that brings us to our next big piece of the puzzle. Because real power isn't just about controlling buildings and money, it's about controlling the story. And within this architecture we've been talking about, there is a constant, incredibly sophisticated battle being waged for our beliefs.
And believe me, this isn't just random propaganda being thrown at a wall. Modern psychological operations, or PSYOPs, they follow a very clear playbook. It all starts with a deep, data-driven analysis of a target audience. Then you craft messages that exploit their existing beliefs. You amplify those messages everywhere until it feels like common sense, and then you use powerful emotions to basically short-circuit our rational minds.
But this is so important to understand. The goal isn't always to make you believe one specific lie. Sometimes it's something way more damaging. The political theorist Hannah Arendt wrote this all the way back in 1951. She said the real goal can be to just exhaust your ability to tell truth from lies, until you just give up, retreat into cynicism, and stop believing in anything at all.
And you can see this philosophical battle playing out, like right now, everywhere. Here are two totally opposing worldviews, captured in comments from a public debate. On one side, you have the firm assertion of objective, demonstrable facts. And on the other, you have the claim that truth is entirely subjective, that it only exists in your mind. This clash, right here, this is the central battleground of the modern information war. Okay, so all of this begs a really big question. Why does this stuff work so well on us? And to understand that, we have to look inward. We have to confront this deep, kind of uncomfortable psychological trade-off that every single one of us faces. There's this incredible story in Fyodor Dostoevsky's novel, The Brothers Karamazov. It's called The Grand Inquisitor. And the argument in it is absolutely chilling. It basically says that true freedom, the burden of making your own choices, of figuring out your own truth, isn't a gift. It's a terrible, unbearable weight. At its core, the Grand Inquisitor's argument is that people don't really want freedom. What they crave is security, certainty, happiness, and they will gladly trade the suffering of free will to any authority who promises to just take care of them, tell them what to believe, and make them happy. So let's turn that question around to you. I mean, this is the fundamental trade-off, right? If you had to pick one, the absolute, maybe even terrifying freedom to make your own meaning in the world, or the guaranteed happiness that comes from just following a path that someone else has laid out for you, what would you choose? Okay, so that's a pretty tough picture. The system is complex, and our own psychology can be turned against us. But it is not hopeless. There is an antidote. There is a way to reclaim our own agency in the face of all these pressures.
The activist and scholar Vandana Shiva puts this so beautifully. She argues that things like hope and love and especially fearlessness, they aren't things you just have or you don't. They're potentials. They are skills you can practice and cultivate, almost like you're tending a garden. It's an active choice you can make.
So how do we actually cultivate that fearlessness in the middle of an information war? We have to build a cognitive firewall. And that's not just a cute metaphor, it's a practical toolkit from PsyOps experts. It means you have to actively diversify your information diet. Go seek out credible views you disagree with to break out of your echo chamber. It means doing the hard work of actually checking claims, looking for primary sources, not just headlines. And maybe the most important thing, learning to pause. Just pause. Notice when you have a strong emotional reaction and let it settle before you believe something or share it. That pause is your #1 line of defense against manipulation. And that brings us to the last and maybe the most personal part of all this. We've spent this time looking at these massive external forces that are shaping our world. Now we're going to turn the lens inward and think about our own position and our own responsibility inside that very system.
Warren Buffett has this powerful thought experiment he calls the ovarian lottery. I want you to imagine this. 24 hours before you're born, a genie appears and lets you design the world. The only catch is, you don't know who you'll be. You just have to pull one ball from a barrel with billions of them. Would you design the world we live in right now, not knowing if you'd be born into wealth or poverty, in a safe country or a war zone?
In this chart, it basically shows you the results of that lottery. The system we've just examined, with all its institutional frameworks and power structures, produces wildly different results depending on which ball you happen to draw. The top 1% controls a massively disproportionate share of the wealth and, as we've seen, the power.
But here's the kicker from Buffett. He believes that winning the lottery comes with a real responsibility. His whole philosophy on inheritance isn't about hoarding wealth. It's about empowerment. The goal, he says, is to leave enough resources to enable ambition, but not so much that it completely smothers it.
Which brings us right to the final and most challenging question. Because let's be honest, for most of us watching this right now, in the grand scheme of human history, we've won the ovarian lottery. We were born with immense advantages. So the real question isn't just about understanding the system. It's about what we choose to do with that understanding. What is our responsibility? That's the question I want to leave you with. Thanks for watching.